Living Water interviews, which takes place every Saturday morning at about 11:30 Eastern Time. It is now 11:44. We have a little late start on this, but that's okay. We are all set and ready to go. So I'm going to bring in our host and invite her to join us this morning in sharing our spotlight. There you go. Over to you. Please unmute.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Sabbath. We are happy that you're here with us this morning for yet another Living Water interviews. This morning, we have someone who has been here with us for a little while, always on our Zoom study. And I know you're wondering who it is. Just soon enough, if you see my background, maybe you'll get an idea. So today we have yet another wonderful interview in store for you, where we get to know the life story, parts of the story of someone's life on their journey into the one true God truth. Today I welcome no other but Wayne. Wayne will be interviewed this morning on our Living Water interview. Pastor, usually you bring on the guests and myself, but today you chose to leave the guests behind.
Yes. I'm waiting for you to welcome him, and he's coming right in.
Welcome, Brother Wayne, this morning to Living Water interviews. I've seen that name and I've heard that voice a few times. And now we are seeing who he is. And in the background, I believe that's your wife right there.
No, that's a friend. That's a friend of mine.
Oh, just a friend. Okay. All right. Your wife is around?
Yeah, she's teaching the children.
Okay. All right. We welcome you this morning, Brother Wayne, to Living Water Bible interview. And I'm happy to see your face. This one, as you can see, I was told your background is JA. And that is why I had to complement my video with your country. All right, now tell us your full name, because I only said Wayne, your full name and where you're from and where you are now. Tell us a little about that.
Okay, so my full name is Wayne Anthony Sutherland. All right, so yes, I was born in Jamaica many years ago.
We get some more volume on that, Brother Wayne.
Speak up. Okay.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you.
So I hope that's better.
Better.
Any better?
Yes.
Or should I take this out? Hold on.
Let
me switch things around. Okay. Am I much better now?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Right. So my name is Wayne Anthony Sutherland, and I was born in Jamaica. That's where I did my schooling. My family, my siblings are there, and some years later, I moved to England, where we now live. So I'm not sure how much more you want me to say about Jamaica.
I'm going to ask you.
Okay.
You were born in Jamaica. Did you grow up in Jamaica? How was growing up in Jamaica? What home did you grow up in? Was it a Christian home, an Adventist home, a religious home? What kind of home you grew up in? And up to what point you stayed in Jamaica? Up to what age?
Yeah. Right. So yes, I was born in a Christian home. My grandparents were Seventh Adventists, and my parents were also Seventh Adventists. So I grew up attending the Seventh Adventist church. I spent most of my years there. We have only been living in the UK for the past 19 years. So most of my years were I spent there. My studies, my training, because I'm in education. So I did my training there in Jamaica before coming here. And I've always loved, and still thank God that I was grown in a spiritual home. You know, I can't recall ever having a desire to walk away from my spiritual path. I make mention of that because I do have brothers who also grew up with me in the Christian home, and in their adult years have taken a different path. You know, right now my younger brother, I'm encouraging him back to the path, and he's responding. You know, because here in the UK we have a little fellowship as you guys do, and he sometimes joins us. This morning he joined us, though a bit late, but it's still encouraging to see that he's now having a desire again to find his roots, so to speak. So I do have a fairly large family, because I have 4 brothers who are from my mother. I should say 3 brothers who are my mother's children, and I'm the 4th boy. She had no girls, right? And the eldest and myself remain in the faith. The one I followed, he has not. Though now and again I see him responding in a spiritual way, which I'm appreciating too. To some things, that some of his posts, I hope it will grow. I have sisters, but they are my father's children before he met my mother. So, but in total, I have 7 siblings. 3 are in Jamaica, and the others are abroad, and 1 died. So
right.
that's my family in generally speaking, and my spiritual background.
Okay, more of your spiritual background. Growing up in the Adventist faith, how active were you in church? Did you hold any positions during that time, growing up in the Adventist church? How active were you?
Well, I was a part of the Pathfinder. I was a member of Pathfinder. I participated in church activities, you know, when they had like to sing a special, or to sometimes they asked me to preach. I remember my first time doing a ceremony. You know, on Sunday nights they used to have Sunday night prayer meeting, and I remember when I was asked as a young man to do a sermon that Sunday, and that was good for me. It was also part of the desire, the spiritual desire in my heart. My mother and my parents were more of the upfront, like superintendent, that type of a thing, but I didn't play in a role in that form. I would ask to teach a Sabbath school lesson or something like that, but I wasn't like a designated Sabbath school teacher, you know, for each Sabbath. I can say though that much later on in my life, I had an experience which led me into colporteuring. So I did work as a colporteur for a while also, which brought in itself its own experiences. But and when I became a teacher, I worked in a St. Adventist school for 2 years. So basically, that's my general role within the church setting.
Okay, you sound like a very, how would I put it, obedient, decent young man as an Adventist. Did you ever think of exploring and getting out there and see what the world has as an Adventist? Because I was born as an Adventist and I did want to explore at some point. as teenagers growing up, you have friends, you hear things, you see things, you want to explore. Did you ever have that urge to be out of the church and explore?
You know, to be honest with you, I never did. I never did. As I said, I look back on my life, and if I were to say otherwise, I would bring shame to my father's name, because I look back in my life and I honestly can say I believe, I know that his hand is on me, and that that confirmation came, if I get the opportunity to share an experience I had, which brought about this confirmation. I had an experience, and from that experience, it caused my family to withdraw from me. Um, and it was my mother who told me that, she said to me, Wayne, when you're a baby, you almost died. And I'm quoting her. She says, I prayed that God will spare your life, and if he does, I give him to you. And when I went through my experience and she saw how everyone stood back, she was the only one who did not. And she said, Wayne, why I did not stand back like the others, because I did not agree with your decision. But I know why you took that decision, because when you're a child, I pray that God will take you. And I just came to the conclusion that God took you. And that was like something I don't want to ever forget, that my mother prayed for God to take me. Temptations come my way, I cannot deny that. To do otherwise, yes. But to say that I'm going to go out there and just walk away from the path of the Lord, I never really had that desire, to be honest with you.
Right.
Even as a student in school, my teachers, whenever they needed a Bible, they would say, if no one has a Bible in his back pocket, Wayne has one. It was always there, and it has always been there, and still here.
All right.
President.
Great. Let's fast forward to the present now. You went to the UK. You said it's about 19 years since you went to the UK. Were you married in Jamaica already, and you and your wife moved to the UK? And do you have any children?
Yes. Yeah, we were married in 1996, and I do have two boys. One is 22, and the other is 14 years old.
All right, I see you followed in your mother's footsteps with the boys.
Yeah, yes. So yeah, so I was married in Jamaica, and my first son was born in Jamaica. My younger son was born here in the UK.
All right, great. Now you moved to the UK as a Seventh Adventist. In the UK, did you continue going to church and being a Seventh Adventist?
Yes. Right. Yes. Yes, I did. But if I don't know, I suspect you might ask me this question, but to help you appreciate what happened, I although I was born in an Adventist home, I was always still like inquiring mind, and I wasn't fearful of asking certain questions. And my grandfather being a church elder and all, I used to usually ask him some challenging questions, like for example, you would preach that, those who are undefiled with women are those who have never been to another church denomination. They are purely Seventh Adventist. And I would have debates with him about that and say, I can't see that. I don't accept that. And anyway, that type of debate and probing and studying and desiring to learn more was from then. And so even my understanding about whom God is developed from being in Jamaica. When I came to the UK and I went and I visited churches in the UK, I honestly visited churches. I did not go to church expecting. I went to church with a hope to share what I know, what I've learned. And I went from church to church trying to do that. And the take-up was like non-existence. Nobody was interested in what we now know about the truth about God. Um, but I carried on for many years of visiting different churches. And there was one that we settled down for a while at. But again, you know, I wasn't feeling uncomfortable. It was like I would go to church, but come back home very tired, worn out, stressed, as it were, you know, because there was no joy in what I was hearing and a lack of receiving. And, you know, it was, so eventually I stopped.
All right, let me pause you here before you go on to answer the next question. I know you must have touched a little about it, but presently, tell us, how did you get the journey? How did you come to the knowledge of the one true God, truth? Tell us about that journey.
You want a full journey or the abridged journey?
Well, I guess you could concise it a bit, you know, but tell us.
All right, okay.
We have some time.
But this is the way the Lord brought me to this truth. When I was training to become a teacher, I had 1 year left in my training. And as I said before, I had this strong desire and love for the Lord, to the limited knowledge and understanding I had. I was living by that. And when I was training, they changed the course and introduced something that I did not want to participate in because I knew it wasn't the will of my Father. And so I walked out of this institution. I told the head teacher that I'm going to leave, and he said, "Don't leave. Your brother," at the time, my eldest brother was the president. And he said, "But your brother is doing the course." And I said, "No, I'm not going to do it. My brother sits on his own bottom as I have to sit on my own." And it was there. Then I left. And when I left, as a friend's home I went to live at. And then from that friend's home, and this was a case when I said to you earlier that my parents and everybody withdrew themselves because they claimed the stand I took. They didn't like that, you know. I was going to make a waste of my life. And I went to live at a friend's home, and from that friend's home, that is where I started to do the colportering. Then from that home, there was a crusade taking place a few miles away from where my parents lived. And I went to that crusade, and I was asked to become a Bible worker. And so I started to work as a Bible worker there. And at the end of the crusade, the home I was staying at, it was a gentleman's home, very large house, but there was no electricity there. But the guy was very spiritual. He would get up early in the morning and sing, and I loved that, and pray and study in the early hours of the morning, and I enjoyed it. However, one day, while we were having breakfast, I am telling you the truth, the unction of the Lord came over me and said, "Wayne, it's time to leave." Just like that. I did not know exactly where I was going. I said, maybe the Lord wants me to go to look for my mother. And I just told the brother that I'm going to leave. And he said, "No, you don't need to." I said, "I'm getting this unction that I need to go now." And I just left, took my little bag, and I left. And while I was at a taxi stand, I saw this car pulled up, a red car pulled up. And I looked in the car and I saw the driver, that it was a past teacher of mine at my high school, from my school. And so I went over to her, and I noticed that the vehicle was heading in the direction of my parents' home. And I went over to her and I said, "Could you give me a lift to that location?" And she said, "You know, I don't really take up young people, you know, young men in particular. I don't do that. But anyway, come." And then on the journey, I was telling her my experience. And she said to me, oh my God, you know, I've been looking for a son like you. Do you want to come and live at my house?" And just like that, she turned around. I went to live at her house. And after living at her house for a while, I noticed that her husband was very, very controlling. And I was due to try to encourage her not to let this happen to her. And he didn't like that. And one day he took a machete and rushed after me because he felt like I was setting up his wife against him. And it was through this lady, she introduced me to David Clayton, because I left from her house to stay at David Clayton's house. because nobody wanted me really. And it was by staying at David's Clinton House. This was like in 1993 or something like that. It was like staying at David's Clinton's house. I was starting to learn more about the truth. And then eventually when they started to hold fast to the truth about whom God is, later on in about 1995, coming on to 1996, I embraced that truth also. By 1996, when I was married, now I was sharing it with my wife. And then both of us eventually, making a long story short, got this fellowship from the church because of what we stood for. So this is a condensed version of how I got to this truth. Not hearing you.
I was muted, sorry. It has been such a long time since you accepted the truth of the one true God. Was it an easy thing to accept for you? Was it did it just come easy to accept that truth?
You know, as in anything, when you start, what I find with truth, you know, it's like a building block, yeah? And all you need to do is to accept the first part, and the Lord will then take the next. So at first, I did search here and search there, but the more I searched, I could see the connection. I could see the relations. I could see the truth in what I was looking at. But and so I just learned to accept the evidence I saw at first, which eventually built on more, and then built again as you know, as time went by. Because I will not say that I understood everything in one go. I will not say I accepted everything on the spot, but I know I accepted what I could not deny. And from that point, you know, the Lord carried me on.
I guess it was not that difficult for you, even though you did it one step at a time. You took your time to understand the truth, and I'm happy that you understood it and accepted that truth. And how was it bringing that truth to your wife when you got married? What religion was she in? Where was she at?
By then, by the time when we got married, she was a Seventh Adventist. Because in her interview you had with her time back, you know, she was not originally a Seventh Adventist. But the time when I met her, because I met her, she was attending one of the gatherings in one part of Jamaica, in one region of Jamaica, and I was also visiting that gathering from time to time. I would sometimes be in Mandeville, where David lives, or sometimes I would be in Kingston, where where my wife met would meet with that gathering, and that's where I met her, and from there became friends, which led to marriage. But when I started to share with her, you know, what I was understanding, at first she wasn't really buying into it, but she was also of that inquisitive, searching mind. So it's not like she just said, "Well, you said it, amen, I accept." And that was not the case. You know, she did her own personal searches, and a part of, as she said in her testimony at the time when she was interviewed, and it's true, you know, she would listen to the cassettes that David used to produce, and many of the questions that she had, that she was asking me, I wanted to ask me, the answers were presented in David's presentation on those cassettes, and that helped her to join with me in my understanding, and I thank God for that, because it didn't cause, you know, any division or create any, you know, separation or anything or disagreements in the marriage. It brought us close together because both of us were agreeing on the same points as we moved on in our learning.
Great. Now, how is the relationship with your family now? Those who were not too good with you, and are your parents still alive? How is that relationship? You tell them about the one true God truth?
Yeah. So, you know, God has brought us a good way. Because at the time when I walked away from that institution, my father told me not to come back to the house. And when he knew, and when they all learned about what I stood for, also about the truth about God, it was voiced around that I was a shepherd's rod. I was Brimsmead. I was all sorts of what I was not. But you know, my father and my brothers, thanks be to God, they have come around. They saw they haven't my father hasn't really say accepted in depth what I understand, and partly due to the fact that I've been away and we don't get on a one-to-one basis for me to fully share with him. You know, he's still in the church, he's still in the faith, you know. So partly due to that, my brother, my younger brother, I do share with him. He has never shown any objection, but he hasn't shown any real acceptance yet either. My mother died in 1996. She died in April, and I got married the December of the same year, 1996. But, yeah.
Right. Now, you said when you got to England, you did a little church hopping here and there. You settled for a little while, and then you realize you're better off just being on with a group instead of going to church. What group were you studying with while you were, not going to church? What did you do on a Sabbath?
What we did, just my wife and I used to stay home, and we would just have worship with the kids. And then the friend you saw sat behind me, she was a part of the church also, and we were sharing with her what our understanding, and then she joined us and started to see what we were saying was true, and then we just started to worship from home. And when she stays at her home, we did the Zoom thing, and from there now we started making connection with another sister who's also Jamaican, and we had not seen her for 30 odd years. We only met up when Imad came here the other day, and he spent some time with us. She came over, right? But then she joined us, and from there, the meeting online started to blossom. Today when we had our meeting today, because we start our worship at 12 o'clock UK time, and today we had 22 individuals on, and which I said, oh, to God be the glory. This wasn't anything that we were saying we're going to work towards, or we're going to, we just saw how the Lord eventually brought in individuals from different parts. This has been happening for a few years now, and I just give
So
all that.
You have your own Zoom meeting going on,
yes.
Zoom study. Okay, great. Now, how did you get to know about living water? Because you are here often. How did you get to know about living water and get to love living water? That we see you a lot, and we are grateful.
It's my wife, really, it's my wife told me about it, and I just logged in all the time, and then I found because we finish at about 2:30 UK time, and your study start about 3:30 UK time. So I got a little breather, and then I said I could just join in, just log on.
Right, great.
What was my wife who really shared it to me about living water.
All right, great. I look forward to inviting some of your own people to come to Living Water to see what's happening over here. Yeah. Okay, now, apart from your Zoom study where you share God's truth, do you do that in any other form? At work, probably. Do you do that in any other form?
Yeah. At work, I do share my faith in my father, in our father at work. I can't say we have reached a point in any of the individuals I've shared with the depth of what we now know, but I do have spiritual conversations. Sometimes as a family, we have tracts, little booklets and such like, and we will go out and drop into letterbox and stuff like that, or if I have someone who travels with me in the car, I have some in the car, I'll just give someone. So those are some of our little methods. or I will have stickers on my car, and people approach me about it. They will see something's been said about God on the car, and or I'll be at the petrol station and someone just approach me about it. So those are little ways of generating conversations also, you know.
Great.
Those are my way of generating conversations also. I believe in sowing the seed,
Right.
and increase belongs to the Lord.
Right. That's all we have to do. And how has this journey, how has this truth changed your life altogether? How has it benefited you? How has it changed your life?
Yeah. Oh, massively. Massive. You move away from being a legalist. You move away from being just living based on what doctrine, arguing doctrines. You learn to know that the life you have is not your life, it's the life of Christ in you. And by so doing, it removes fear. It removes fear. Let me tell you what I mean by that. When I say even removes fear, when the whole pandemic thing came out, and our pandemic, whatever way it wants to be termed, we settled in our hearts that I'm not doing it, and my family agreed. We're not taking this vaccine or whatever, because of the relationship that we have found with our Lord. We weren't determined. We weren't going to be forced into man's way. Here's my testimony behind removing this fear. In the midst of all of what was happening, we agreed that we're going to look for family. We're going to travel. We're going to go to California. And we bought our ticket. And they're saying that if you're not vaccinated, you can't travel. And this is what this truth has done for us, has done to our faith. We declare that, listen, our Father is in control, and man's decisions can't overrule what God's will is for us. And so we bought our ticket. And we went to the airport. And while we were at the airport, we heard the attendant saying to everyone who came to the desk, "May I have your vaccine card? May I have your vaccine card? May I have your vaccine card?" And when we came to our turn, the flight attendant, the attendant said, "May I have your passport?" And my wife, we looked at each other and we said, "That's our daddy. That's our Father." This is what faith in him does. He removes the fear of men. And what God decides to do for his children, man can't stop. And so we did that. And we traveled. No argument, no question, no challenge. Right? And we didn't test the waters and then say we purchased another ticket. We had purchased a ticket to go to Jamaica camp for the April in the same restriction period. And we had to go through New York at this time. And again, the Lord showed his favor for us, towards us. And I know that what has brought us our faith to this point is this truth. This truth about whom God is more than just a knowledge. Is a relationship. It's a relationship, and this relationship has done good for us. Praise God.
Very, very, very wonderful testimony, because if we have that faith, he said, like a mustard seed, and some of us who said if you're not vaccinated, you can't go, and would be afraid to buy the ticket to go. You move with faith and you allow God to do the rest, and that's a great testimony.
Can I say something before I move away?
Yes, you can.
Every individual that Christ healed in his day, he said to them, not everyone he said this to, but for those he said to, arise, go wash your face, go to there, do this, whatever. If they had remained seated, they would not have experienced the miracle. Okay. And sometimes we ask ourselves the question, why is Christ not doing what he used to do then? No. Is we not responding as they responded to what he did then? He still says to us, arise, go preach, arise, but we remain seated. We stay lying there on our backs and expect a miracle. The miracle is seen when we have responded to the command, arise.
As you said that, you make me remember the term I hear people use, that God help those who help themselves. I wonder how true it is. Anyway, what are your final thoughts? What would you like to say to someone who is struggling to understand and believe the truth about God and his son? What would you say to them?
The scripture says, many will be lost because they do not have the love for the truth. The love for the truth is essential in going forward. The thing is, you can present the truth to an individual, not just the word truth, the witness itself. Christ rose Lazarus from the grave, as we said earlier. And it says many believed, but yet still, although they saw that without a shadow of a doubt that he did this, they chose, some chose not to believe. So I say the starting point is when you see that this is truth and undeniable, you can't deny it. You might not understand everything in one go. Accept that little truth that you now see, that you cannot deny. And what God will do, he will then use that little mustard faith in that truth and build and grow from there, right? Into other truth. One thing with truth doesn't fight against each other. Truth builds on each other. So as you have accepted this truth, another truth will come its way and it will build on that truth you had before and the other truth you had before. If you find something that is trying to take away that little truth you first understood and appreciated, then something is not clear about this other bit of information you're getting. So examine it some more, or something of the sort. But it should not try to destroy each other, but try to build on each other. All right. And I just say, start with a little you have.
Thank you so much. Great words coming from you, Brother Wayne Anthony Sutherland. I'm happy that you came to that interview this morning, and I pray that God continue to guide you as you continue to spread his word and tell others and instruct others in his way, that he may continue to bless you, your wife, and your children, and your community of believers. And we thank you for being here. And as usual, our members might have some questions for you. So stay right here with us as I put you on to Pastor Fabio. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. Let's take the next few minutes to see if there are any questions from the Living Water family. I see about 13 or so of us here, maybe 12, excluding myself and Wayne. Leah has already done her part. Anybody has questions for Brother Wayne? Something that you just want to find out in terms of his journey in knowing the one true God? Anybody? Do so now.
Yes, we do.
Go ahead.
Hi, Wayne, how are you doing?
Fine, thank you.
Yes, your testimony regarding the surrounding COVID and your trip. The first part you mentioned, your trip was on your way to California, and then instead of asking for the certificate, they ask you for your passport. Now that was on your way to, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And on your return to London, they didn't ask you for, did they ask you for that?
No.
Because you were going back home?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Right. Now then you mentioned of the second trip going to Jamaica via the US. And the US was huge on this vaccine thing. Can you give the details about how you got through that how you got through not requiring a vaccine passing through the US.
I tell you, it's miracle. That's how I term it, put it down to be honest. As I said, when we did the California trip, as I said, it is just as I said it, nothing more, nothing less. We stood in the queue, and the lady just said to us when it was our turn, "May I have your passport?" Just like that.
Mhm.
And there was no conversation before or after about about vaccine card. When we went to Jamaica, again, not being vaccinated, so we don't have a vaccine card. However, on that trip, we were told about a group called a control group thing. They can give you a card and a letter from a doctor to say you're exempt. Because it's another thing too that I had to do, even at work. They gave me a green lanyard to say that I'm exempt because I said I'm not wearing the mask and I'm not doing this thing. And so as to prevent any arguing and questioning from the students that I was having, they gave me a green lanyard to just quash that. So the same thing when I went to the trip to Jamaica this time. When we got to the airport, again they asked for the card, and we didn't have anything to produce. But I showed them to say this doctor's thing to say we are exempt, and that was it. They just say carry on to your journey.
Wow, interesting.
Thank you, Claude. Anyone else has a question for Win? All right, doesn't seem that we have more questions. I want to thank you so much.
I have another question.
Go right ahead, go right
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah, you mentioned of your background being Seventh-day Adventist, and you grew up in the church, and later on you branched out. Is there any residue of Adventism in you? Part A to the question.
Go
And
on. Oh, sorry, you finished the question.
and part B to the question. You could respond simultaneously. Part B to the question is that what's your take on the quote unquote servant of the Lord?
All right, number one, residue. Like when Christ said, oh Jerusalem, how if I could just gather you under my wing as a hen gathered her chickens. That's how I feel, to be honest. I have a sadness because I remember once, I remember once while I was at church here in the UK, they were doing communion service and they were singing this song, something about turn your face to the rising sun, and S-U-N, sun. And I remember I went to the pastor about it and I said, why are we singing that song? All right. And then the following communion Sabbath, he did it again. I realized that these folks are determined to lead us astray. And for that reason, there's that hurt and that hurt for the folks, for the members. But respect to me, to say that I'm a Seventh-day Adventist, less I feel like I'm getting connected to the denomination and in what it stands for and what it believes. I have no residue, nothing there to the point that I don't even contribute financially, because I feel like if I do that, I am contributing to the false teaching that takes place there. When it comes to Ellen White's writings, I have read her books from a child, many of the books. As a person, I have no hatred for Ellen White. I will sometimes even occasionally, rarely, but occasionally will draw on a statement that she has made. for the reason that I don't know. I know that there are things that is said that I don't agree with, but I don't know in truth if some of those statements reflect her personal thoughts, or was it contaminated, because she herself said it would, some parts of her writing would be. And the challenge for me, sometimes I read some of her writing that is so in line in what I believe, and yesterday I read another bit that is so contradictory to what she just said over here. So for that reason, I reserve the writings for now, because especially if I have to have a discussion with somebody about the scriptures, or even to talk about talk to an Adventist, I don't really draw on her writings to support, because I know that they can also draw on something else that she might have said, or someone else might have contaminated and put it to say that she has said, especially like in the book Selected Messages, where much of that is where they have put that together and stitch it up together as if is her thoughts, so for that reason I just leave that for all. But I wouldn't say I'm going to take an hammer and hit her over the head, you know what I mean?
Okay, and figure just the last question, just an annex to that question. So based on all what you've studied and what you understand of the prophets of old, going all the way down to John the Baptist.
Say it again. You got.
Yeah, based on all what you've studied about the scriptures, as it relates to the prophets that God has called, going all the way from the Old Testament prophet going down to John the Baptist, based on what you've understood of scripture, what you've understood how God works, would you confer prophetess status upon Miss White?
Not limited to her at all. It's a gift that is for every one of us. Would I say that God used her to make some prophetic statement? I would say yes, but I don't say that since John the Baptist, she is the only one God has ever used in that way, or will ever use in that way. Is our availability to him, and he has also promised us that we also will be used to be prophets. So, so to say, I'm gonna say on her, oh, she's a John the Baptist, she's a Isaiah, she's a Jeremiah. I would say she was used to reveal understanding of God's words, as many of us right now are talking about the truth about whom God is, are opening to the hearts of individuals about the truth about God is. God has brought that to our understanding too. So we stand in a line of being used just as she was used to bring to light certain misunderstandings.
All right, thank you. I could take you a little further, but I guess let me leave the floor open for someone else.
Thank you, Claude. Anybody else has a question for Wayne? Please do so now. All right, we want to thank you, Wayne, for being with here. Yeah. Okay, please don't let the airtime go dead. Just pop in with your questions. Go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, Brother Wayne. Since you came to this truth, especially in the past 5 years, have God revealed a new light to you that you did not have before, or new truths that you are seeing? And what are those new truths or new understandings? At least some of them.
That's it's not like I can't tell you that there are understandings, but it's not that you sat down and say, wow, I'm gonna write this down, Here is something, I don't know if you consider this as a new understanding, but if I were to say there's some understanding that has blessed my personal heart, then I could probably draw on that. Take for example, I read in it is in Timothy, where it says, the verse says, count it all joy. No, it says, let me find a verse, and then it makes sense, with a sense what I'm trying to say. Okay. In First Peter chapter 1, verse 7, for example, this verse, it says that a child of our faith, being more precious than gold that perisheth, though it may be tried with fire, might be found unto praise and honor and glory at the appearing of our Lord, of Jesus Christ. The child of our faith is more precious than gold. I read that verse and I now have a new saying about it. You know, we say gold is valuable, but our child is even more valuable. So whenever I go through my trials, I'm making a spiritual deposit. I hope you got that.
Okay.
I could probably, there maybe things, yes, I could draw on to say that have come clear to me that I've never seen it before, or heard it mentioned before. But that question is really on the spot one for me, that I never really marked them down to think that way.
Okay.
But even this reply, I'm not even fully satisfied with it either. But
okay, fair enough.
Thank you, Sterling. Anybody else? Let's do that now. Okay, it has been a wonderful morning. We thank God for guiding us through the study of John chapter 16 and the opening verses of 17. And we thank God also for using Wayne, our brother, to bring to us his testimony. And those words, they might seem to be just a man's experience, but they will have telling influence on those who will hear of what God has done in somebody else's life. And there is a saying we used quite a lot when we were growing up: what he's done for others, he will do for you. Somebody's going to be strengthened by your testimony today. Would you mind closing up this section for us, Wayne, with prayer? And we want to thank everybody else for being here at Living Water Bible Study.
Before I close, I would say that thanks for the invitation. And I join with you in praying that what was shared will be a blessing to someone. But I want to say the big thing for me, if in trying to even answer Sterling's question, is relationship. That's a big thing for me. I might not be able to tell her of some brand new understanding or something I have to prophesy about, but what I know has been my go-to, the relationship. Ask anyone whenever I'm asked to make any presentation, that's where I'm drawn to and lean to, is about that relationship with my Father. Hence my testimonies. It's because it's based on my relationship. The relationship tells me I can make this stand, I can take this step, I can respond this way, I can do this thing because of the relationship I have with my Father. That's what gives me confidence, right? I work in an environment right now, I'm the only Black person there. Some people say, wow, but because of my relationship with my Father, I don't feel inferior. I don't feel less. I don't use this to the relationship with my Father, what determines who I am. And I remember one day at work, somebody made an accusation against me. And my line manager called me and said to me, Wayne, I'm only calling you just for formality of this meeting, but I know what they said was not true, because I have seen you. I've seen your commitment. I've seen your what you stand for. Right? And I know that is based on the relationship. And I know anytime I endanger my relationship, I know what that can bring. I know the trouble that can follow through on that. So
Sure.
that is my main point.
Appreciate it.
Let's pray. Father, we are thankful to you, dear Lord, for your blessings and graces. We're thankful to you that for this opportunity that you afforded, Lord, for us to just talk about goodness, your goodness in our lives. And I do pray to Father that anyone who hears what you have done in this life, your life in this being, that they will be encouraged, dear Lord, to have this relationship with you likewise, that they will come, taste and see that truly you are a wonderful Father. You are more than just words. A relationship with you, it's where it counts. It's where you desire for us to be. You say we are no more servants, we are friends, we are your children. And I thank thee, Lord. Continue to bless this ministry. We pray that through it you will be glorified and others will be drawn to you, Lord. Thank you for hearing our prayers. Thank you for loving us always. In Jesus we praise thee. Amen.
Amen.